This is Radio 84 MHz, broadcasting from the bustling streets and hidden alleys of Vietnam. You are tuning in to the frequency of inspirational stories and unfiltered vibes. Today, we follow Mark, the Wall Street shark who once thought Vietnamese kindness was a scam. Now, he's tackling a bigger mystery. How does a developing nation outscore the wealthy West in global education rankings? He stands at the gate of a local public school in Hanoi, Vietnam, convinced the numbers are rigged. He believes creativity needs air conditioning and genius needs MacBooks. He is wrong. Presenting the PISA Paradox: Why Your Money Can't Buy Genius. Don't forget to subscribe for more hidden gems, and tell us below, do you think facilities make the student? Now, let's listen. If you told me this place produces some of the world's top mathematical minds, I'd say you're selling me a pyramid scheme. Or worse, you're delusional. I am standing in front of the gate of High School X, a typical public school in the heart of Hanoi, Vietnam. The outdoor temperature is 36 degrees Celsius. Humidity is 90%. My Brooks Brothers shirt is clinging to my back. And what is in front of me? An old concrete block, painted in fading yellow. Patches of wall peeling off to reveal fired brick, and a schoolyard. Good Lord, it's so small, I don't think it could fit 3 of my SUVs back in Connecticut. I turned to Tuan, my patient, and somewhat naive, local fixer. Tuan, are you serious? This is the talent incubator that the World Bank reports praise so highly? Tuan smiles, that cryptic local smile. Yes, Mr. Mark. This is one of the top schools in the city. I scoff, a bitter, cynical laugh. In my hand is the 2022 PISA report from the OECD. The numbers in here are ridiculous. It claims Vietnamese students score near the OECD average in math, far outperforming countries with similar income levels, and even beating wealthy nations like the UK or US in certain categories. About 72% of students achieve math proficiency level 2 or higher, compared to the OECD average of 69%. Listen, Tuan, I tap the file against my palm. In investing, we have a rule. If something looks too good to be true, it's usually fake. Look at this school. No central air conditioning, no Ivy League standard labs. I bet the library doesn't even have enough computers for 10% of the students. I point at the swarm of students flooding out the gate. White shirts, red scarves, or youth union badges. They look normal. Too normal. In the US, my nephew goes to Exeter. Tuition is $50,000 a year. He has a football stadium, a $1 million robotics lab, and every kid has an iPad Pro. That is how you create innovation. That is how you create the next Elon Musk. I look at Tuan, eyes challenging. And here, with this poor infrastructure, how can they possibly have critical thinking? I know what your secret is. Tuan raises an eyebrow. What is it, Mark? Rote learning, I declare flatly, feeling like Sherlock Holmes solving a case. You train math-solving robots, Vietnam machines running on formulas. You stuff knowledge into their heads to get pretty scores on standardized tests. That's not real education. That is a grade manufacturing assembly line. I recall the article in The Economist I skimmed on the plane. They also praised the Vietnamese education system, talking about teacher dedication and the highest human capital among lower middle-income economies. But I don't buy it. How can a country with a GDP per capita 15 times lower than the US possess a better education system? It violates every law of economics I know. Money must beget quality. Low funds equal low quality, period. Tuan, I have a meeting this afternoon with the Board of Horizon International Schools. They want me to invest $10 million. They have an Olympic pool and native teachers from London. That is the future of the Vietnam economy. But this, I jut my chin toward the public school gate, this is just a remnant of the past, a past painted over with nice statistics. I check my watch. The Patek Philippe reads 11 a.m. Let's go, Tuan. I need a Vietnam coffee in an air-conditioned room. Standing here for another 5 minutes, and I will melt. And please, Stop trying to sell me on these education success stories. I only believe in what I see and hear, and my eyes are seeing scarcity. Tuan doesn't argue. He just says quietly, "Mr. Mark, wait, do you see that group of students over there?" I squint in the direction Tuan is pointing. Under the canopy of an ancient phoenix tree in the corner of the yard, a group of 5 to 6 students is huddled together, not playing games on their phones. They are drawing something on the tiled floor with white chalk. They look intense. What are they doing? Playing tic-tac-toe? I sneer. Not exactly, Tuan replies. I think they are debating. Bridge design? Bridge design? I laugh out loud. With chalk? Don't make me laugh. Let's go. But Tuan doesn't move. And that damn curiosity. But Tuan doesn't move. And that damn curiosity of an investor, the instinct that always wants to investigate every corner of the market, suddenly kicks in. I exhale sharply. Fine, 2 minutes. Let me see what tricks your geniuses are up to. Let me teach them a lesson about real life, that the real world doesn't run on white chalk and abstract theory. I adjust my tie, walking toward the students with the demeanor of a king stepping down among commoners. I had no idea that in just a few minutes, my massive ego would be crushed right here on the scorching pavement of this schoolyard. I thought I came here to teach, but as it turns out, I am the one about to go back to school. I walk over, my shadow casting a long silhouette over the kids' scribbles. I expected to see a tic-tac-toe game, or at best, chemistry homework. But no. What I see is a mess of parabolic curves and differential equations. Hello, kids, I say in English, my tone condescending. Drawing a treasure map? The group looks up. 4 boys, 2 girls. They look at me, then at each other, then back down to continue their debate. One boy with thick glasses, looking like a nerdy version of Harry Potter, is holding a worn-down piece of chalk. He is speaking Vietnamese very fast. Tuan translates for me. He is talking about optimizing the traffic flow at the Ocho Dua intersection to reduce congestion. I laugh, a sound that echoes across the empty schoolyard. Congestion? Look, Hanoi's problem isn't math. It's infrastructure. You kids need wider roads, not longer formulas. I decide this is the moment to teach them a lesson about the real world, where numbers on paper never match the terrain. I, Mark, who has interviewed hundreds of quantitative analysts, quants for my hedge fund, will show them the difference between rote learning and thinking. All right, geniuses. I take off my Ray-Ban sunglasses, looking straight into the eyes of the boy with glasses. Let's call him Nam. You kids like math, right? Let me give you a real-world problem. Not from a textbook. This is a question I use to weed out arrogant Harvard MBAs. Tuan whispers nervously, Mark, don't. I ignore Tuan. I point to the noisy intersection right outside the school gate. Let's assume, I begin, voice challenging, motorbike traffic through this intersection increases exponentially during rush hour, but the road width is constant. Calculate the cumulative delay of the traffic flow in the next 15 minutes if a bus stops and blocks 30% of the road area for 45 seconds. And listen, no calculators. I cross my arms, smirking in anticipation. This is a Fermi estimation problem combined with basic calculus. Most American students would pull out their phones or start Googling friction coefficients. I wait for the confusion. I wait for them to scratch their heads and say, "Teacher hasn't taught this yet." But Nam doesn't scratch his head. The boy looks at me, his gaze strangely calm behind those thick lenses. He says nothing. He crouches down on the scorching pavement. The white chalk begins to move. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Not random numbers. Nam writes, the integral from 0 to 15 of f of t minus c of t dt. He sets up a flow density function. He adds a variable for the bottleneck created by the bus. I start to feel a pit in my stomach. Hey, that is. Nam doesn't stop. His friends around him start reading out assumptions. Assume average density is 2.5 vehicles per square meter. Flow velocity drops to 0 at t equals 5. They coordinate with each other as smoothly as an F1 pit crew. And then, the craziest thing happens. Nam stands up, dusting chalk off his hands. He looks at me and speaks in English, with a slight accent but perfect grammar. The total delay is approximately 1,240 vehicle seconds. But sir, your question is flawed. What? I am stunned. Where is it flawed? You assume the road width is constant. Nam points to the intersection drawing on the tiles. But in Hanoi, motorbikes drive on the sidewalk when blocked. So the effective road width expands dynamically. The real equation should be non-linear. I stand frozen. My hand unconsciously pulls out my iPhone 15 Pro Max. I open the Wolfram Alpha app, the world's most powerful computational engine. I punch in the parameters, my hands shaking slightly. The result appears: 1,238. The boy mental mathed it with an error margin of less than 0.2%, and he corrected me on a real-world variable, the sidewalk. The shock hits me like a bucket of ice water in the middle of the Hanoi summer. This is not rote learning. Rote learning is repeating what is known. What this boy just did is innovation in problem-solving mindset. He didn't just solve the math. He understood the physics of chaotic Vietnamese traffic, something no Western textbook teaches. I look down at the tiled floor. The messy white chalk formulas look like a piece of abstract art. Tuan, I whisper, my throat dry. How old is this kid? Grade, 16 years old, Tuan replies, voice unable to hide the pride. And he's just an average student in his class. The national math team is on a whole other level. Just an average student? In that moment, the images of million-dollar labs and shiny iPads in America shatter in my mind. I realize I am standing in front of a resource more precious than oil or gold. A Vietnam generation possessing razor-sharp intellect, forged not by comfort, but by pressure and scarcity. My prejudice that facilities dictate quality has just been crushed by a cheap piece of chalk. I canceled the meeting with Horizon International. I couldn't sit there listening about heated swimming pools when the image of that boy, Nam, and that piece of white chalk was still stuck in my head. I need to understand. I need to know how a student at a public school with tuition of a few dollars a month could defeat me, an MBA from Wharton, in a numbers game. I open the secret files, essentially the in-depth reports on Vietnam that I had ignored before. I start reading, not skimming like an arrogant investor, but scrutinizing every line like a man seeking the truth. And the truth hits me right in the face. First document, OECD's PISA 2022 results. I zoom in on the chart. It's not a typo. Vietnam students actually score near the OECD average in mathematics. But what's more shocking lies in the details. About 72% of students achieve math proficiency level 2 or higher, compared to the wealthy OECD average of 69%. How? I mutter. How do they do that with a GDP per capita 10 times lower? I switch to the World Bank report. This line sends a chill down my spine. Vietnam's human capital index is the highest among lower middle-income economies. They didn't build concrete skyscrapers first. They built skyscrapers in human minds. The report confirms that Vietnamese student learning outcomes are second only to Singapore in ASEAN. Singapore, one of the wealthiest nations on earth, and Vietnam is breathing right down their neck. I take a sip of whiskey, feeling my hands tremble slightly. I was looking in the wrong place. I was looking for hardware, facility, while the true asset of the Vietnam economy is software people. Next, The Economist. They call this an amazing education system. The secret isn't iPads. The secret is teachers. The article points out that Vietnamese teachers are well-managed and trained regularly. They aren't just instructors, they are disciplinarian coaches. And this society? God, this society is obsessed with learning. The Economist calls it ingrained Confucianism, where education is not a choice, but a sacred duty to the family. I recall Nam's eyes, that focus, that intensity. It doesn't come from wanting to get into college for fun. It comes from a survival instinct. The IMF report calls Vietnam a remarkable development success story. Why? Because the government commits up to 20% of the budget for education. I close my laptop. The room is silent. I was wrong to think Nam was an exception, an anomaly. No, Nam is the product of a system designed to create resilience. In America, we teach kids how to use tools. Here, they teach kids how to think, to create tools, even when they have nothing in their hands but a piece of chalk. Suddenly, I realize a massive investment potential I had missed. Foreign investors, FDI, aren't flocking here just for cheap labor. They are coming for a young, increasingly educated workforce. Kids like Nam, when they grow up, won't just be assembly line workers. They will become engineers, startup founders, the ones creating the next wave of innovation. I stand up, walking to the balcony to look down at the shimmering lights of Hanoi streets. The stream of motorbikes flows like a river of light, the very chaotic flow that Nam modeled with nonlinear equations. I came here looking for investment opportunities in educational real estate, but I just discovered an open-pit diamond mine, Vietnamese intellect. I pick up my phone, calling my secretary in New York. Cancel all meetings with international schools, Sarah. But boss, the $10 million deal. Forget it, I interrupt, voice firm. I just found a real unicorn, and it's not in an air-conditioned room. Tomorrow, I'm going back to that public school, not to teach, but to make an offer. I return to the crime scene, the place where my ego was murdered yesterday. But this time, I view this school with a completely different pair of eyes. Yesterday, I saw peeling walls as a sign of poverty. Today, I see them as a testament to resilience. Yesterday, I saw the cramped schoolyard as scarcity. Today, I see it as a pressure cooker creating diamonds. I find Nam in the same spot, under the old phoenix tree. His group of friends is still there, but this time they aren't drawing on the tiles. They are huddled over an ancient laptop, the thick kind from a decade ago. Hey kid, I step forward, placing the iced tea down next to Nam's chalk. Thirsty? Nam looks up, recognizing me. The boy is a bit shy, but his gaze remains razor sharp. Thank you, sir. But why are you back? More math problems? I laugh, shaking my head. No more math. You won that round. I'm here to admit defeat. I squat down next to the kids, an action the Mark of 24 hours ago would have died rather than do, for fear of ruining his trouser crease. Listen, I say, voice lowered, as sincere as I can be. Yesterday, I judged you. I thought because you didn't have AC, didn't have iPads, you couldn't think. I was wrong. I forgot the most important rule of economics. Scarcity breeds creativity. Nam looks at me silently, then smiles slightly. A smile of someone who knows their own worth, without needing validation. So, I point at the battered laptop. What are you building? Another bridge model? No. Nam turns the screen toward me. It's code. Python. The boy starts explaining. And God, this time I get Shock Season 2. It's not just homework. It's an algorithm optimizing delivery routes for tech shippers. We realize the current apps don't account for small alleys correctly, Nam says passionately. So we are building a plug-in API to fix the routing. Faster delivery, less fuel. I look at the lines of code running on the screen. Clean, efficient, smart. This is exactly what the report I read last night said. Vietnamese youth are ready to embrace technology. 6. And have an entrepreneurial spirit, driven by a young population. These kids don't wait for someone to teach them. They learn online, find social problems, and build solutions themselves. Kid, I interrupt Nam. Are you planning to sell this? Maybe, Nam shrugs. We want to start our own company after university. That was my moment of transformation. I pull out my gold-foiled business card from my vest pocket, the kind I usually only hand to Fortune 500 CEOs. I flip it over, take out a pen, and write a number, not a phone number. A personal investment commitment figure. Listen, Nam, I was going to throw $10 million into that international school with the heated pool over there. I nod toward the distance. But I realized, investing in a pool is investing in comfort, but investing in you guys, I look straight into the boy's eyes, is investing in the future. I hand the card to Nam. This is my private number. When this plug-in hits beta, call me. I'll provide the seed funding, not charity, investment. I want equity. Nam takes the card, hands trembling slightly but eyes burning with fire. Are you serious? Dead serious. I stand up, dusting off my pants. In America, they call this venture capital. But here, with what you've shown, I see zero risk. I turn and walk away, leaving the cheering kids behind. I feel light. I didn't buy a pretty school building, but I just bought a ticket on the future ship of a rising power. Tuan, I call my guide, who is standing dumbfounded at the gate. Cancel the flight back to New York. Find me a co-working space. I think I'll stay here a while longer. I need to find a few more Nams. I came here as a preacher, but I stay as a partner. My last night in Hanoi. I stand here, watching those young students. They don't have modern language labs. They don't have expensive summer study abroad trips to London or Boston. Their classroom is the sidewalk. Their teachers are random tourists like me. And they learn with a hunger I have never seen in the aristocratic schools of the West. I look at the PISA report in my hand one last time. The numbers that once made me suspicious, Vietnamese students outperforming peers from the UK and US in math and science, are no longer a paradox. They are an inevitable consequence. Why do Vietnamese students outperform the rich kids? The answer isn't money. In the West, we view education as a right that comes with comfort. If the AC breaks, school is canceled. If the Wi-Fi is slow, we complain. But here, education is an opportunity, the single opportunity to change one's destiny. I think of Nam and that white chalk on the scorching pavement. That boy didn't need Wolfram Alpha to solve equations. His brain was the computer. This education system, despite its material lack, has achieved a miracle that money cannot buy. It forges resilience. The World Bank calls this the place with the best human capital among developing nations. I call it an open-pit diamond mine. Diamonds aren't created in comfortable laboratories. Diamonds are created under the immense pressure of the earth. Vietnamese students are those diamonds. The pressure of scarcity, of family expectations, and of a learning-obsessed society has compressed them into the sharpest blocks of intellect. I came here looking for a consumer market. I thought I would sell them American-style education. But I realized I am the one who needs to learn from them. They don't need me to teach them math. They need me, and investors like me, to provide the capital to turn those equations on the pavement into world-changing technologies. You ask me if the PISA scores are fake? No, they are real. In fact, they haven't even reflected the full potential here yet. If you are an investor, don't just look at the skyscrapers or GDP numbers. Look into the eyes of the kids solving math with chalk in the schoolyard. That is where the smart money flows. Vietnam is no longer a country that just copies. With this generation, they are ready to lead. I just bet $130 million on that belief. And you? Do you still think facilities make the genius? Sometimes, the best schools don't have walls, and the best minds don't have iPads. This is Mark, signing off from Hanoi. See you in the next investment.